According to Barna, 51% of all church-going Americans are unfamiliar with the term the Great Commission. Let's change the stat.
Welcome to GoCast, a podcast designed to inspire and equip pastors and leaders to lead soul-winning churches. We have a mission to go and make disciples. This is GoCast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to GoCast. I'm your host, Kelly Stickle, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Tim Tribble. How are you, Tim?
Doing good. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, today's podcast, we are interviewing a good friend of mine, Pastor Larry Gregory from Lehigh, Florida.
Right.
And amazing man. He's been in ministry for most of his life, for a long time. He's been a missionary. He's a pastor. He's planted churches. He's an amazing man. But he gave up a multi-million-dollar business that he had in his 20s to pursue the mission that was in his heart and to go after ministry, and laid all of that money and success and left it behind to pursue the mission that he felt called in his heart. So let me ask you this question.
Okay.
What have you given up for that internal mission, for that drive inside of you, for that call of something bigger?
Yeah, I mean, I lived my life in the same town, same streets for 26 years, and everything was very comfortable. And when me and my wife felt that call, we had to leave family, everything that we knew that was familiar, all comfort zones and all favorite restaurants and everything like that. And it was really just a time to pack up and go to a brand new territory. Didn't know anybody, no safeguards, no promises. And honestly, now that we're here, every single day, I think we give up something for the mission. I think there's a self-sacrifice that happens.
Right, and that's part of the call, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we know there's things we could be doing, other things we could be doing, and when you go through those tough days, you question that. And I ask pastors, hey, have you ever felt like you wanted to quit? And the common answer is, today? Today yet? I mean, we go through that, but there's something that drives us so much bigger, and it's a mission that's so much better. And it's inspiring to hear a leader like Pastor Larry, who's spent his entire life on mission, and what he's been able to do and work in, and is continuing to work in, and pushing harder than ever before. And it's an inspiring conversation. I know you're going to love. What's amazing is he talks about his church, and his church in Lehigh, Florida. He just handed it over to his son. So we talk a little bit about that process, but he also talks about how their church, 65% of their church are unchurched people, which is amazing. Yeah. He said 25% of their church are people who have moved in from other communities and started attending their church. So that means that only 10% of their church has come in from transfer growth. That's an amazing statistic that is not normal across the board. I love his heart. I love his focus. And you're going to love this conversation with my friend, Pastor Larry Gregory from Lehigh, Florida. Well, hey, Pastor Larry, welcome to GoCast. It is so great to have you on the program with us, man. It is. We met last year, I think, at a conference, and it was amazing to connect with you and your son, and to learn a little bit about you. You were a very successful businessman in your 20s, and yet you walked away from millions of dollars, literally, to pursue ministry. So tell me about that decision and why you decided, what happened? What happened to the call? Why did you decide to pursue ministry?
Well, many years ago, I was had my own business in California. I basically sold soda and coffee, and I did catering and stuff of that nature. And we were doing in today's dollar, about $3 million a year.
Wow.
And that was by the time I was 28. And what had happened was I was a Christian, but I knew God wanted something out of my life, but I didn't know what. And I remember I went to a men's meeting, a men's discipleship, and this pastor, he was preaching, and he used a story about Stephen Jobs, how he was trying to get Vince Scully, the CEO from Pepsi-Cola, to come work at Apple.
Yeah.
He couldn't get Scully to come for any reason. And finally, he just barged in Scully's office and said, hey, Scully, do you want to sell sugar water the rest of your life, or do you want to change the world? And Scully was so taken back by Jobs, he ended up leaving Pepsi and became the CEO of Apple.
Wow.
Now I'm sitting in the audience, and I hear that story, and God said, Larry, do you want to sell sugar water the rest of your life, or do you want to change the world? It was the same. I was selling sugar water.
Yeah.
Vince
Wow.
Scully was. And so I ended up, getting out of the business. I ended up selling it and went into full-time ministry.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you've planted several churches from scratch, and you've done extensive missions all over the world. You recently handed over the senior pastorate of your last church to your son. So, man, what are you working on now? You got a lot of things going on.
Well, what we're trying to do is we are very into church planting, and so we want to have 10 churches right in our immediate area. We live in a place called Lehigh Acres, but it's a part of Southwest Florida.
Yep.
About 1.5 million people, and so we want to plant 10 churches in that area that are very close. Maybe 30, 40 minutes at the furthest. That's the immediate goal, and we're also working on international hub churches where we would have a church in another nation, and we would help them plant churches and reach that country.
That's really cool. So, I mean, you're obviously passionate about church planting. That's going to be your focus. So why? What is it about church planting that really gets you fired up?
Well, years ago, I remember I was just a regular guy in a church, and I remember reading the book of Acts, and I saw that this is what they did. They were Paul was planting churches, and it's like it's the next progression for a church. Christians should beget other Christians, and churches should be, reproduce themselves. And then probably the greatest church planter, in the Western Hemisphere, Ralph Moore, he said it's the number one way to reach people is planting a new church.
Yes.
Our church got planted in Lehigh Acres, and, everyone said, oh, it doesn't need another church, and, there's enough churches here. And we planted, and, now we're probably the second largest church in our city.
Yeah.
And we've reached thousands of people over the years.
Yeah, that is amazing, and church planting is a great way to reach the lost. So, talk to me about why you're passionate about the local church, in particular, winning souls.
Well, I think the church should be like it shouldn't be a country club or a cruise ship. It's the army of God, and we're supposed to win souls. I mean, that's what Jesus said. He came in Luke chapter 19, it talks about he came to save that which was lost.
Yes.
And the church should have that same mission. And so in our church, what ends up happening in a lot of churches is they have transfer growth. People are coming from other churches and they're building that way. And we want to build with people getting saved.
Yeah.
Probably 65% of our church got saved at our church. Either they got saved here or recommitted their life. And about 25% are people that moved here. They were already Christians.
Wow.
Only about 10% is transfer.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. And it seems so obvious. I mean, to me, it seems obvious. I know to you, it seems obvious that the church should be winning souls. I mean, it's the mandate that Jesus had. It's the mandate, the Great Commission that He gave us to go into all the world and preach the gospel. Why do you think it is that the churches get away from that mission and become the country clubs? Because a lot of churches, man, they become for insiders. They rely on transfer growth, like you said, and we lose the mission. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, because it's hard work and it's very messy. When you're dealing with people that don't know Christ and they're not saved, it's really messy.
Yeah.
You're dealing with, they may be addicted to drugs or alcohol. They might have a criminal past. I mean, everything, that you could imagine under the sun. And you have them come into church, and there's a lot of work involved in trying to help them to overcome those situations in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I find Christians are messier. They look good on the outside, but man, yeah, but it's true. I mean, talk to me about one of the messy people that comes to mind. Somebody that came to mind in your ministry, and how their life radically changed because they became born again in the church.
Well, there's probably been a lot, but when I pastored in Los Angeles, I was in this really bad area that the church was in. We were in the harbor area in LA, and we had a lot of gang members get saved and come in. And when we were in Fiji, we saw a lot of Hindus get saved. And one of the greatest things that happened to us was a Hindu priest got saved and totally converted to Christianity. And and he was a part of our church, and he was an awesome guy. He's with the Lord now.
But that has far-reaching effects, just more than just him getting saved, but that has far-reaching effects on his family. I mean, Hindus are once one family member gets born again, this has a big reaching effect.
Oh, it was. We saw his whole family got saved.
Wow.
It was pretty awesome because he was like the leader, and just to see that transformation is pretty powerful.
That's amazing, man. And you're very passionate about mentoring other pastors and leaders, and you spend a lot of your time coaching and mentoring other leaders. Why is that a big passion for you?
Well, I think it's important because there's a lot of pastors that they're great guys and all, but they just might need a little help in a certain area, or they might not know something. And so just a little help can change everything. Like I was just recently last month in Nigeria, and we are connected to a church there, and the pastor planted it about 3 years ago. And I was there, and man, we had a tremendous time, and I was just able to pour into him and help him. And it's just a few areas, and I could see everything change for him just because of a few minor things that he could tweak, and everything could drastically change in his ministry.
Wow, that's amazing. And when you mentor a leader, it changes. Yeah, it changes hundreds instead of, you're not just changing one, you're changing hundreds, if not thousands, of people. I love that. It's kind of interesting. I mean, the churches that your church is called Victory Church. Our church is Victory Church, and we were joking about that. We're hearing from the Holy Spirit, and then this podcast we've called GoCast, and you run a conference called Go Conference with the same typical mission. So we're kind of on the same page or hearing the same thing, except for, and I just got to point this out to those who are watching. Except for the football teams that we cheer for. I mean, it's obvious that shirt is really quite distracting for me. But anyway,
well, I just we serve the King of Kings and the champion of all, so I have to cheer for a team that's the champions. Team championships.
Yeah, we'll move on. I was going to get to my question here. Yeah,
the Vikings are still at 0.
Okay, moving on. But anyway, so talk to me about the Go Conference. This is a conference you're hosting. It's been 4 years now. Is that correct?
Yeah, this will be our 4th year.
4th year. So it's a conference in Lehigh Acres in Florida called Go Conference. So what's the purpose of the conference? Why did you start it, and who's it for?
Well, we started it because we wanted to activate our church members to get really engaged in evangelism, discipleship, and church planting.
Wow.
And then it's also a platform for us to plant churches. And it's a tremendous thing where you have other speakers come in, and our people can get a different perspective of all these dynamics, in play. And so we want to activate, our church, and then anyone else who wants to come that would like to learn more about that.
That is really, really cool. Which I'm sure there's a lot of pastors listening. You're saying, man, I want to. How do you activate Christians to evangelize? Because it's sometimes assumed that that's the job of us as pastors, and if we're not fivefold ministry evangelists, then we don't have that passion, and so it doesn't happen in the church. But yet we want our churches to evangelize. So I mean, how do you activate Christians and our church members to evangelize?
Well, I think you have to challenge them too. I mean, it's so a lot of times it's not preached, it's not taught, and it's not encouraged to reach out to your neighbor. Like I just had some guys doing some work at my house, and so before they left, I gave them a little tip, and then I invited them out to church. Yeah. And so if everybody does that, it's amazing. What can happen where just a simple invitation. You look at in the Bible where it talks about, Philip invited Nathaniel, and Nathaniel came in and had a relationship with Christ. It's the same way. There's power in invitation. Right. Where you just invite somebody. Hey, man, Jesus loves you, man. He cares about you. Why don't you come check out our service, and you can hear something really can change your life. Wow. And it's amazing how people would just come. That's how I got saved. I got saved because somebody invited me. Yeah. and everything changed because of that.
Well, and that's something that we talk about often as, our staff here and our church here is the invite is really our keystone habit. And that's really, let's park on that for a moment, because it's the power of the invite. If we not just, we shouldn't just tell our people to invite, we should probably coach them how to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. We have to kind of give them the tools. Sometimes it's just maybe a little invitation card, but I think just challenge them, and we just make it a lifestyle to say, hey, if I just talk to somebody, invite them, talk to them about Christ, it's simple. And I remember when I was a brand new convert, I was, at a church at university where I got saved, and they asked me to give my testimony. I had only been a Christian for 2 months. I didn't know anything of the Bible, literally nothing. I was an atheist before. I never even looked at the Bible. I remember, hearing about Noah and the Ark, and I go, that's in the Bible? I thought that was like a fairy tale or something.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. But what happened is I invited my friends. I invited all my friends. I was in a fraternity, this crazy fraternity, and I got saved. I invited them all. I said, hey, man, I'm going to be preaching. I thought I was preaching because I was giving my testimony. Yeah. And I invited them, and I had 25 of my friends come, one service.
Wow.
Because I just invited them. You just never know who's going to come.
Well, and it's not much more complicated than that. Even you're talking about Philip and Nathaniel. I mean, the invite was, hey, just come and see. All right. Yeah. It was just I met somebody, you got to come and see. And that was it. Well, talk to me about, if we get our people inviting in our church, we have to do something as pastors on our end to make sure that when people are invited to our church, that it's going to be conducive to those visitors coming in. So talk about that, because there's a lot of people that won't invite to their church because there's too many cringe factors, or there's something there that they're going to go, man, if I invite my friend, I don't know if I want to, I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't know if I want to invite my friend here. So what do we as pastors have to do to create that invite-friendly culture?
Well, I think we have to first make sure that our church is relevant and it can minister to people, and it's not weird. It's like people don't want to go to something that's weird.
Yeah.
And, it's like a restaurant. If you have a good restaurant that you tell people, hey, man, you got to check this out. It's got good food. And, you're not afraid to do that. But if it's not a good restaurant and, they've got a weird, cook or waiter or something, you don't invite them there. It's the same way. We have to have a relevant service where the gospel is preached and people can hear a message and their life can be radically changed by hearing that message.
Yeah, that's really good. And when we talk about weird, we assume sometimes that if there's Holy Spirit power that it's going to get weird, but that's not what I read in the book of Acts. Holy Spirit showed up and there was some strange things that happened, but it was different and it got people's attention, but it wasn't so weird that it repelled. It was authentic power. And sometimes we translate, don't we, as we want to manufacture power, or we try to make things up, and it just creates weirdness and it does repel.
Yeah. Well, the gospel is powerful in itself, and God's word won't come back void. So if you preach the gospel and people are unsaved hearing it, they're going to get saved. Not everyone, but they're going to hear a message that can change their life. That's how I got saved. I heard the message and I said, man, I'm a sinner. I need Christ. And my life got changed. And there's nothing weird about that. And that's the most greatest miracle there is. I've seen all kinds of other miracles, blind eyes open, deaf ears, cancer healed, all that. And that's not weird either.
No.
But, we want to see God's power demonstrated in a relevant manner so that people can be changed by it.
Yeah. So what would you say to the critics out there that say, well, if I change, then I'm going to be compromising. I'm becoming seeker sensitive has all of a sudden become this really negative term in Christian circles in particular, and saying we assume that we're compromising. What do you say to that?
Well, I don't think it's a compromise. We're fishing for souls. Yeah. And so if you go fishing, you don't just go out there with a hook and say, hey, jump on the hook, fish. You got lures, you got bait, you got worms, you've got things that attract somebody who's not saved. Like the way I ended up going to church the first time was somebody invited me to a Christian concert. Right. I didn't even go to the concert, but I ended up going to church. and so we can do things that open up that avenue so people can hear the message. Sometimes we cloud the message with all the other stupid stuff that can hinder people from finding Christ.
That's so true.
Get all that out of the way, then it's just the gospel and just being, normal and nice to people and just being, genuine and friendly to them. And it's amazing what can happen.
That's so true. I mean, it's not a new problem in the church that we get weird or we put obstacles in the way. Acts 15. I mean, it didn't take very long for the new church. In Acts 15 chapters in, they're making some weird rules and laws about people getting saved. And I love Acts 15:19. It's kind of my theme verse for our church and our ministry. James, the brother of Jesus, kind of pounds. I can just imagine him pounding the table, but he says, "Let us not make it difficult for the Gentiles to come to Christ." I love that. Like he puts the responsibility on us. Let us not make it difficult, and that's what you're saying, right? Let's some of the things that we do can make it difficult for people to come to Christ. The gospel is not going to repel. The power of God's not going to repel, but sometimes it's some of our weirdness that hinders people from coming to Christ.
Set up this gauntlet that people who aren't saved have to go through to find the message. Let's make the message really accessible to them.
Yeah,
it's right there in front of them, and then they have to make a decision if they want to follow Christ or not.
Yeah, that's true. One of the things that we do, we've on the same point about inviting and the power of an invite, is we actually poll our congregation every year and ask them about inviting if they feel comfortable inviting their friends to church. How many of it they haven't invited this last year? How many of them have invited? And because we want to hear from them, we don't want to have our perception of whether we're weird or cringy. We want our people to tell us.
Yeah.
Are we weird or cringy? Is there anything that's holding you back? Are you inviting or not inviting? And so, pastors going, well, what do I change? How do I know if I'm weird? Man, ask your congregation. They'll tell you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They will, especially because, people, if they're new converts, they're honest. They'll just tell you what they think.
Yeah.
And they won't sugarcoat it or, and like you said before, a lot of churches are geared towards the insiders instead of the outsiders. And so we want to remove every obstacle that can hinder somebody from knowing Christ. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, it's very true.
And it should be to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what Andy Stanley says. He says, we got to focus more on who we're trying to reach than who we're trying to keep.
Exactly.
I love that. Man, so the Go Conference, it's something that I'm sure that there's some pastors listening and going, man, I'd love to be equipped. Can I bring some people to that? And can I come? Can they can? It's open.
Yeah, it's totally open to anyone, and this is the greatest thing. It's free. There's no cost. There's no registration. There's nothing. You have to pay. Just come and partake. And we've got pastors from all over the world going to be there too.
That is awesome. South
Africa, Fiji, England, even some guys from Canada. With that, man.
Hey, that's good, man. We're really pushing it now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So when's the next conference, and how can our listeners register?
Well, it's the conference is November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just 3 days. And they basically can just go to our website and call our office and say they like to come. That's it. It's real simple. It was, like I said, there's no registration fee or anything like that. It's totally open. And in some cases, if the pastor's really, in a hard situation, they can call us and we can see if we can help them with accommodations too. So we want to be a blessing to pastors that maybe are struggling and need some help.
Man, that's so good. Love that passion. So what's the website again that they can go to? It's
Victory of Lehigh, and that's spelled LEHIGH.com.
victoryoflehigh.com. Awesome. So, man, this has been so much gold in here. Loving this. What are you sensing for the next 5 years of the global church? I mean, you've got connections all over the world, and I'm sure like connecting with pastors and leaders all over the world. What are some of the similarities? Like, what are you sensing for the global church?
Now, when you say global, are you talking about our global church or the global church entire?
Let's talk the big C church. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I believe that we're getting closer and closer to Christ returning. I mean, just the way the world is. I know we've heard that before, but I don't think we have a lot of time, and I think we need to be busy about our Father's business and try to reach people. And there's so many nations, that need Christ, that desperately need God, and they're very open. Like I said, I was just in Nigeria, tremendous time. I was in South Africa. Monday I leave. I'm going to, first I'm going to Seattle, but I'm going to Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia. And these places need Christ, man. It's really, especially Australia, it's such a gospel-hardened place.
Yeah.
God can break through that. And so we're just seeing tremendous things. Like, we were in Italy last year, and we were connected to a church. It's in a town of 250,000 people, and it's the only Bible-believing church in the entire city.
No way.
The only church, yeah. There's no other Bible-believing churches in that city.
Wow.
And they're tearing it up, man. They're having a great time, and people are getting saved, and they just planted a new church out of there. And so, there's tremendous potential, and I think we have to really, push it, man, put the pedal to the metal and just go for it, because time is short.
Wow. I really sense your heart in that and sense the urgency. And I feel exactly the same way. I got chills as you were talking about that. I really do sense that there's an urgency like never before. I sense a real shift, global church-wise in 2020, but that there's something gonna be happening. But that's part of the reason why we're launching this podcast and doing GoCast is because of the urgency to awaken the sleeping giant that is the church to win souls. If we could just awaken the church to winning souls, we would take communities. And man, what city was that in Italy, man? I want to go plant a church now.
Yeah, it's called Pescara. It's on the opposite coast of Rome, and it's just a city. Most people have never heard of it, and I've been there probably 4 or 5 times, and just God's moving. Like when I was there, I mean, this is Italy. I mean, it's Catholicism stronghold, and last time I was there, one service we saw 12 people get saved.
Wow,
one service. And, God's moving in a place that has no gospel there. And so it's just awesome to see that.
That is amazing to see. And we see stuff all over the world, but you're sensing the same urgency in the United States and in Canada as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's happening. And people are open. They're getting saved. Like, I don't know if Pastor Daniel shared with you, just a normal service we had last month, 30 people got saved. It was nothing special. Any special outreach. It was just a normal service, and 30 people got saved. It's crazy.
That is awesome. And it just comes to be expected. I mean, do you guys do an ask every service?
Oh yeah. What we do is we preach our sermon, and there's something for everybody in there. There's milk, there's some meat, there's something for every person in every walk of life. But at the end, we always give a little gospel presentation. Hey, man, if you're not right with God, today's your day. You can have Christ change you. Yeah. And it's amazing when you do that, people get saved. And, we've got people in our church, like this happened probably in March. We had an outreach, and this girl named Ashley got saved. And she's been coming ever since. And, she's like one of the greeters, and just to see her life just totally transformed. It's amazing. She's, a brand new convert,
Yeah.
But, and then she's inviting every week. She's like, oh, hey, Pastor Larry, I'm bringing this person, and she's bringing somebody new. Like, all right, go for it, man.
That's so good. Well, there's a real key there in what you said, like doing the ask, no matter what you're preaching, but doing a short little gospel presentation, doing the ask every single service. We do the same thing, which is why I asked you if you did that. But there's something really powerful in that. And what I've taught and talked to pastors of churches of any size, I don't care if your church is 20 people. If you do the ask and everybody in the room, just do it every single Sunday, regardless. If you know everybody in the room, and the reason being is because somebody's sitting there and thinking that, man, I should invite my friend. If I know pastor's going to do the ask every single Sunday, I can feel safe to invite every single Sunday. And if I've got a meeting with, a business person, or I talk with my next door neighbor this week, I don't want to sit there, and I don't want my people to sit there and going, is this the week I should invite them, or should I invite them 3 weeks from now, or when do I invite them? If they know there's going to be an ask every single Sunday, they're more likely to invite as well.
Yeah. Well, here's an example. We had a pastor, guest pastor, come and preach, and he preached this powerful message. I mean, it was great. And at the end, he didn't give an ask or an altar call, whatever you want to call it. And I got up afterwards, and I thought, man, I'm going to do one. And I just did one right after. It was no disrespect to him. He just didn't understand, some of the things that we do. And then I did, and 11 people got saved.
Wow.
I wasn't even the preacher. He was the preacher.
Yeah.
The little thing, and 11 people. So you just never know. I mean, that could be the one and only time somebody who doesn't know Christ is sitting in your congregation, and go for it, because you don't know.
That is so true. I found it amazing. You preach on tithing, and you do an ask afterwards, and we've had more people saved in that message than any other message. And the next biggest one was we preached on sex. And I was like, a whole bunch of people got saved. And I was like, what? Wait, you're right. I mean, it doesn't matter what you preach on. You give the gospel, you give the opportunity, and it's a powerful thing. So that's a really big nugget for pastors and leaders, man. Every service, just ask. And it's amazing. You think, man, everybody here is saved? And I've talked to pastors, and I've gone and preached or guest preached in a small church, and no, everybody in my church is saved. And you do the ask, and 4 people get saved, and their eyes get big, and they're like, "What?"
They're shocked. Well, it's just like I said, just the little gospel message. I remember I had a friend of mine. This is years and years ago. They were showing a video. He was in a foreign nation, and the Christian video broke. And so the only this is like the old VHS.
Yes.
The only tape that he had was there. It was Star Wars, so he put it in there. And these people weren't used to seeing video. It was that kind of place.
Yeah.
And he played Star Wars, and then after the movie was over, he got up there and gave a message. Darth Vader's like the devil, and he's trying to rip you off and drag you to hell or whatever. And you can have Christ and you have the light. And then he said a bunch of people got saved.
Wow.
It's just like it totally had nothing to do with it, but he gave a message, about the cross, about Christ, and how their life can change, and people got saved. It's amazing.
Wow, that is so good. Absolutely. So, man, this has been gold. This has been awesome. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked? Something I didn't ask that you wish I?
Man, you asked for a lot of stuff. Just one thing I just wanted to say is that one of my favorite verses is Jesus said go into all the world and preach the gospel, and we need to do that. And I take it literally. I've been in like 54 countries and counting, and we need to go for it, and just not stop and understand that, we only have so much time.
Yeah.
We got to make it worth its while.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love your heart, and love what you're doing and your ministry, and excited for what God is God in the future for you as well. Thanks so much for being with us. Where can our listeners connect with you online, on Facebook, Instagram? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, on my Facebook page, probably the best. It's a public figure account. It's under Larry Gregory in Lehigh Acres, Florida.
Larry Gregory. All right. That is awesome.
It's great.
Thank you so much, Pastor Larry. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, man. Bye-bye.
All right. What a great conversation with Pastor Larry Gregory. So much in there again.
Yes.
What was your takeaway?
So at the beginning, when he's talking about the CEO of PepsiCo, Vince Scully, and Steve Jobs, CEO of Apple, and Steve Jobs was trying to get Vince Scully onto his team, tried for years, and then ended up just barging into his office one day and said, do you want to sell sugar water your whole life, or do you want to change the world? And he felt the exact same thing. It's like, do you want to do this business, or do you want to go out and change the world? And that's a huge decision to make, but in the end, reaped huge rewards for him.
Yeah, huge rewards and fruit for the kingdom, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I love the fact that that he talked about not making your church weird. And the reason why I loved it, I've had lots of pastors that talk to me about, don't make your church weird and that conversation. But it's usually with younger pastors, younger leaders who think that some of the style from the older generation might be a little bit weird or outdated.
Right.
And yet here's a guy that is older, been in ministry for a long time, is not stuck in the rut, and he's the one preaching at us about not making it weird. So I love that. Now, speaking about not making it weird, I have a feeling I need to cleanse myself a little bit.
All right.
Because I just cannot handle the fact that there was so much green in that podcast. So I brought you a hat for you here. And we just got to make sure that everybody realizes what's going on and what happens here. We got to, just lay this all out there. That's so much better. Huh? You can feel it?
Wow,
you can feel like
it's like a cleansing process we just went through.
Yeah, so that's good. We just have to do this just for our Canadian friends. I have no idea what we're talking about. This is the Minnesota Vikings, just making sure that we're all clear on that. And we don't like the Green Bay Packers. And that shirt, I don't know, it just, something about it. I was distracted the entire time. And so I just got to make sure that we're cleansed, we're good. But all right, now we feel better. Yeah. How does someone join the Go team? How do they join the conversation with GoCast?
Absolutely. Well, become a Minnesota Vikings fan to begin with, and then go to iTunes, subscribe to GoCast, rate and review the podcast that you're listening to, and then get them out there, share it with friends. Let's get this podcast well listened to. I'm
not sure this is a great strategy because I don't know that Pastor Larry and Daniel are going to be sharing much of this at all, that we declared our colors. But hey, it's good. That's for a cause. And anyway, it's good. So join us on Instagram as well and our Facebook group, enjoying the conversation. Next week, we have a great conversation with Pastor Gary Hart from Great Falls, Montana. Mm-hmm. Here's a clip.
Just one of the things that continually drives me as a pastor, and I know that's not the case for every pastor, but for me, that's been my story. And so I do focus on that a lot in our ministry.
That's good.
The fact that the church is not for us. We are the church, and we're here for the world. And it's about connecting with people in our community and bringing them out of the community into a relationship with God and His church.
We can't wait for next week with Pastor Gary Hart. Tim, I got to say, you are looking great.
Well, I thought I'd wear my best today.
So, for those who are listening to the podcast, you need to go to our YouTube channel just so you can see how amazing Tim looks today. It is special. Something is still off. Oh, there's still too much green up here, so we're going to have to just cover that up right there. There we go. So much better. Man, I feel so much better already. That's great. Thank you so much for joining GoCast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of GoCast. We hope you feel inspired and better equipped to take your community for Christ. Make sure to subscribe to receive each new episode as it's released. Let's go and break the stat together.